So just want to maybe close our eyes for a moment just to settle ourselves. Just as we come into the room, so many thoughts on our minds. Thinking of our situation, things on the news, things from home, our families, our friends, things we have to do later today. Noise of the screen coming down. And we just enter into the silence of our hearts. That place where we connect as a community and with the world. We consciously open our hearts to receive from each other, to be changed by our experience here, to be open to what comes next. Amen. So we're in a bit of a process at the moment. Those of you that haven't been here the last few weeks, this is the third week in which we're looking at projects that we at the chapel might take on as a way of making our contribution to those around us. And as I said before, nearly everything that you study in spirituality points to the fact that, when all's said and done, the end point of the spiritual journey is service. After enlightenment, after salvation, after time on the cushion, after the great awakening, we're left with the duty to serve those around us. I think spirituality gives us the correct perspective from which to serve and the place of service that we find ourselves in. Jesus healed the multitudes, the Buddha taught, the ox herd returned to the village with bliss-bestowing hands. And over the summer we did a series, some of you may have seen this, on the nature of reality. And after we've meditated and found our place in the world and generally learnt how to live life more skillfully, we're now, I think, in a place where it's imperative that we find somewhere to serve. So I've been putting forward various ideas. In the first week, I put forward the idea of taking on the cause of global citizenship, coming out of our understanding that all humanity has to come together to solve the problems of the world. We looked at how we could bring about an understanding of the need to act as one, rather than as separate, self-interested parties. So that was the first idea that we put forward. And then last week, we looked at an approach that was more locally based, but could spread out from here, addressing the problem of loneliness in the valley, and also in the wider community to address the effects of loneliness, mental health issues, addiction and suicide. We looked at possibly creating something maybe called the Loneliness Project to create understanding of the effects of loneliness, and with it form as well a Better Together program to encourage people to participate in various ways that might alleviate loneliness. So today I want to bring up the third idea that we might be able to champion in the valley, to be a focus for creating awareness and a touchstone for action. And the issue that I want to bring up today is the issue of climate change. And I'm going to give you a summary of climate change in 60 seconds.
As the sun's rays reach the Earth's surface, some are absorbed and re-emitted as heat. Greenhouse gases, such as water vapor and carbon dioxide, absorb and re-radiate some of this heat. Increased amounts of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere mean more heat is trapped, warming the Earth. Human activities, especially the burning of fossil fuels, have increased concentrations of atmospheric carbon dioxide by 40%, mainly since 1900. Global average surface temperature has increased by 0.8 degrees Celsius over that time. Other changes to the climate in recent decades can be seen in the warming of the oceans, a rise in sea level, decreasing snow and ice cover in the northern hemisphere, and a decline in sea ice in the Arctic. If emissions continue unchecked, then further warming of 2.6 to 4.8 degrees Celsius would be expected by the end of this century. Even at the low end, this would have serious implications for human societies and the natural world.
So recently, the Kogi people living in the Sierra Nevada in Colombia issued a warning to humanity. They said, this is their language, "From the heart of the world, the elder brothers' warning." The Khashoggi brothers, they see themselves as elders, and we are those in need of learning. They said, "The Great Mother created the world in water. She makes the future in it. This is how she speaks to us. We look after nature. We are the mamas and do this here. And we mamas see that you are killing it by what you do. We can no longer repair the world. You must. You are uprooting the earth. And we are divining to discover how to teach you to stop." So that's what they said. And I found this book, I found this in a book called Heart Open, Body Awake by Susan Apashayan. Now, Susan was Christian Dillo's teacher, and Christian was here in May, and he was part of our speaker program. And Susan is coming to us next spring. And she says, though the Kogi are not purely hunter-gatherers, they are still living embedded in nature, as we did for a long period of time. Only in the last few thousand years have we created a serious rupture between ourselves and nature. The Kogi are calling us, the younger brothers, to wake up to the havoc we are reaping on our Mother Earth. When we lose contact with the unitive state, we don't notice that we're doing harm. We don't notice the rupture, but we identify with the results. We feel forsaken by God. Many of us feel like isolated little people within a big universe, or worse, we're obsessed with our own self-importance, ignoring all else. We become trapped in our egos without a direct link to others. At this point, compassion becomes a mental exercise at best, or is forgotten at worst. That was what Susan says. We know that if we continue to abuse the earth, she will bite back to save herself, like a dog that's ill-treated. In the end, we are part of the earth's biosphere, and we're like a guest who trashes a house. On this earth, we pay no heed to what we do. And in the end, we'll adjust. The earth, in the end, will adjust to an extent that we will have to adapt or die. That's what climate change is about. The earth is adapting to our misbehavior. And in the end, like that guest in a house, we'll either have to start behaving or be ejected. You know, we're so entitled. We think that we own the place, and so we can do what we want. But we don't own the place. We're just stewards, and obviously we're failing in our task. None of us own anything, really. We just come into the world naked, and we go out of the world naked. We tear up the earth for gas and oil. We turn the land into food factories to feed mostly the rich, and we drop high explosives or worse on those parts of it that we think are out of line and need to be tamed. Here's a slightly longer explanation about climate change. This time it's 4 minutes.
We hear it so much that it feels like a buzzword, but it is far from it. Climate change is a real and serious issue. But isn't the climate always changing? What exactly is climate change, and why should we care? Well, the Earth's climate has changed throughout history. Most of these slight changes are caused by small variations in the Earth's orbit. But climate change as we know it today is characterized by an abrupt increase in the Earth's temperature. It is estimated to have gotten 1.2 to 1.4 degrees Fahrenheit warmer in just the last century. 10 out of the last 13 years were the warmest on record. 97% of climate scientists agree that this new tendency is not caused by the variations of the Earth's orbit, but rather very likely caused by human activities. That means you and me. And since the Industrial Revolution, we have come a long way. Humans built airplanes, faster cars, developed remarkable technology, and learned how the natural resources around us can be used for our benefit. Although this has led to many wonderful inventions and advancements, like the device you're using to watch this video, or the ability to take a plane halfway around the world, it also means we've increased our consumption of natural resources and in turn released a lot of greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. Now, greenhouse gases occur naturally, but in excess can be dangerous to our planet. Modern human activities have increased the release of non-naturally occurring greenhouse gases because we have stepped up our demand for burning fossil fuels. The composition of greenhouse gases traps heat radiated from the sun. The more heat they trap, the warmer our planet gets. And as our planet gets warmer, we begin to feel the effects. One of climate change's biggest victims is our oceans. Oceans regulate the Earth's temperature and provide 50% of the Earth's oxygen. Now, climate change has increased the global temperature of the oceans by more than 0.3 degrees Fahrenheit since 1969. Although a warmer ocean might seem inviting to a beachgoer, it actually has devastating consequences for supporting life at sea. One of those consequences is ocean acidification, a direct effect of increased dissolved CO2. Since the late 18th century, ocean surface acidification has increased by 30%. A higher acid content means calcifying species, like oysters and clams and shallow water corals, are at risk, putting the entire ocean food web at risk. This is bad news for the 1 billion people relying on the ocean as its primary source of protein. Climate change has also caused the sea level to rise. Just in the last century, sea levels have risen 6.7 inches, but the rate in the last decade has nearly doubled. Sea levels have risen because as the ocean gets warmer, it swells. On top of that, glaciers and ice sheets are melting. Antarctica lost 36 cubic miles of ice between 2002 and 2005, and since 1994, each year on average, the Earth has lost 400 billion tons from its glaciers. That's like an ice cube 7.5 kilometers on a side, 4 miles on a side, melting and flowing into the sea. When all that ice melts, it fills up our oceans, and just like filling up a bathtub, the shores can't hold all that water, and coastal regions get flooded. Troubling signs of climate change are increased extreme weather events. Natural disasters like floods, tornadoes, and deadly heat waves are more obvious to humans because of their immediate impact and their sharing of the images in the media. Climate change, as we know it today, is change in our Earth's overall temperature with massive and permanent ramifications. Although its consequences can be planet-threatening, scientists still believe there are things we can do on a personal level to help. Recycle and reuse things. Walk or use public transportation to get to work. Turn off your electronics when you're not using them. Eat less meat. While you're at it, eat more locally grown vegetables and foods. And last but not least, spread your knowledge and concerns about climate change with others. When it comes to climate change, the main takeaway is that it's real. And although we are part of the cause, we can also be part of the solution.
So I think it's through the unity of nature that's at the heart of all creation that we have to take everything that's particular and separate and bring it into that unity of understanding. We have to break down the barriers of that separateness. And this is to recognize the essential non-duality of all existence, which we've been talking about here for many years. And I think it starts with each of us. We have to be saying in our hearts, as in heaven, as in our hearts, so on earth. I think, that unitiveness is where this begins and ends. Thich Nhat Hanh sums it up well, and he shows the relationship between the inside and outside. He says, "This morning, I picked a tender green leaf off the ground. Is this leaf inside my mind or outside it? What a question. It's a very simple question, but very difficult to answer. The notion of outside and inside cannot be applied to reality. We tend to think of our mind as in here and the world as out there. The mind is subjective and the world and body are objective. The Buddha taught that mind and object of mind do not exist separately. They inter-are. Mind, body, they inter-are. Without this, the other cannot be. There is no perceiver without the perceived. Object and subject manifest together. That's the relationship that we have with the earth, and our consciousness of this brings about that biblical thing of a new heaven and a new earth. Well, I can hear you all say, there are lots of people working on this, on climate change in the valley, and there are. Last month, a friend of the chapel, Melanie Lewis, was part of a team that brought Jane Fonda to Aspen to talk about climate change. And as a result of talking here last week, as a result of me talking to Melanie last week, I reached out to Greg Gashuni, who is spearheading the Aspen Institute's initiative on climate change. And he's setting up meetings to see how we can work together with the Institute. I also was in touch with Ryland French of CORE, the Community Office for Resource Efficiency. It's a 501c3 non-profit that's taking action on climate change. And some of you may have seen some of the events that they've done recently in the valley. And they've also reached out to Chris Lane at ACES. I believe that we can offer a great deal to these initiatives that are already going on in the valley. And I just really said to them, how can we help? One of the things that all these organizations have to confront is the reality of climate change. What is the science of climate change? Here's 6 minutes on that.
Let's not beat around the rapidly melting iceberg here. Climate change is happening, and we are causing it. The evidence is overwhelming. Scientists usually reserve this level of agreement for claims like Earth is a planet or air is real. Yet here we are. The climate change ship has now left the dock, yet lots of people on shore are still debating whether boats can actually float. But maybe you're a person who trusts and accepts what climate scientists are telling us. It's just, sometimes it's hard to explain why. I mean, we've all been there. I care about the environment. I figure with the polar bears and everything, we might as well try electric cars. What do we have to lose? And then they go caps lock serious, saying they have proof that climate change is a hoax perpetuated by scientists paid off by the polar bear lobby as part of a plan to install Al Gore as Supreme World Polar Bear Emperor. Wake up, sheeple. To keep that from happening, we put together this handy reference. The sun is the source of warmth on Earth, so thanks for that, sun. Ice and clouds reflect some of its light away, but the rest is absorbed by land and water and re-emitted as heat. Some of that heat escapes to space, and some is held in by the atmospheric greenhouse effect. The insulating effect of Earth's greenhouse gases are the reason that life exists as we know it, but human activities have increased the concentration of one of them, carbon dioxide, 40% since the Industrial Revolution. We know the sun's output has varied during history, but since the 1970s, the period when global temperatures increased the fastest, temperature and solar activity have moved in opposite directions. If the sun was to blame, it would cook the upper and lower layers of the atmosphere together. Instead, we only see warming in the lower layers, the same place that human greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide are piling up. Since 1870, with fossil fuels, cement production, and land use combined, humans have put about 2,000 gigatons of CO2 into the atmosphere. That's 2 million tons, and about 40% has stayed there. Studying gases trapped in ice cores has let us see what Earth's atmosphere was like in the past. At more than 400 parts per million, today's carbon dioxide levels are the highest they've been for almost 1 million years. That's before humans even existed. Totally uncharted territory for us. More carbon dioxide in the atmosphere means average temperatures across the globe are increasing, and fast. Right now, Earth is warming about 10 times faster than at the end of an ice age. Okay, so CO2 is increasing. How do we know it's our fault? The best evidence comes from looking at what isotopes, or different kinds of carbon, are in the atmosphere. Fossil fuels come mainly from old plants. Plants prefer to use the lighter isotope carbon-12 over the heavier carbon-13, so they contain a higher ratio of 12 to 13 than the atmosphere does. When more fossil fuels get burned, the percentage of carbon-12 in the atmosphere should go up, and that's exactly what we see. And it's not because of volcanic activity. Volcanoes only emit about 1% as much CO2 as we do. Normally that CO2 is balanced in exchange between the atmosphere, plants, and animals, but eliminating carbon sinks has released centuries worth in just a few years. Other greenhouse gases are also increasing, like methane from farm animals and natural gas processing, or nitrous oxide from fertilizers. If we run simulations just using natural causes of climate change, they predict no change or even cooling in the 20th century, and that is not what's happening. It's still going to get cold in some places, but in the 2000s there were twice as many record highs as record lows. And each of the past 3 decades has been warmer than any other decade since we started measuring in 1850. Since 1900, actual temperatures around the world have increased almost a full degree, and most of that has happened since the 1970s. Looking at data from tree rings and ice cores, the past 30 years is probably the warmest in 8 centuries. Of course, not every place on Earth warms equally. Oceans cover more than 70% of Earth, and they absorb more than 90% of the heat added to the planet. Naturally, that's where we see the most extreme changes. Around the world, oceans are rising 1/10 of an inch per year, and they're up 8 inches since 1901. This is because water expands as it warms. And when ice sheets and glaciers melt in Greenland and Antarctica, water that's normally on frozen land gets put in the ocean. The oceans are Earth's largest carbon sink. As more CO2 enters the atmosphere, more of it dissolves in the ocean, which makes the water more acidic. This doesn't mean the oceans will be made of acid, but animals with calcium shells are super sensitive to pH. We're on course for the oceans to hit pH 7.8 in 100 years, which could wipe out 1/3 of species in the ocean. We also know that levels of summer sea ice in the Arctic have decreased 40% since 1978. They might be the lowest levels in 1,400 years. That white sea ice usually reflects the sun's energy back into the atmosphere, but the dark ocean is soaking it up like a black shirt on a sunny day, which feeds the cycle forward. If CO2 emissions continue on their current trends, Earth is on course to be 2.5 to 5 degrees warmer. The oceans could be up to 1 meter higher by the end of this century. Is that a big deal? Yeah, it's the biggest deal. This is by far the greatest issue facing our species. The last time the Earth averaged a few degrees colder, most of North America was covered in a mile-thick sheet of ice. That many degrees warmer? We're gonna have a bad time. So now you're armed with the facts, why we know climate change is happening and why we're causing it. Please, share this information with the people you know, and then let me know. Did it change any minds? Did it change your mind? I mean, are facts enough? If not, then why do so many people continue to not believe in climate science? We'll answer that question in our next video. Stay curious.
About the nature of reality that exists at the moment, and really our decision then is, how do we respond to that? Hazrat Inayat Khan, the Sufi, said, "The secret of existence of the individual as well as the whole cosmos lies in one thing: balance. It would not be exaggerated if I said that success or failure are caused by balance and by lack of it. Progress and lack of progress can be explained as coming from balance and lack of balance." I mean, that quote from Khan makes so much sense to me. You only have to look at the precarious nature of life on Earth. It's all about balance, temperature, oxygen, distance from the sun and other planets. We only exist because of an amazing balancing act that the Earth performs as it spins like a gyroscope on its axis. And climate change is all about balance. The ecosystem of the planet is out of kilter because of what we humans are doing, and as a result, the Earth tries to compensate, and things begin to get out of whack. Each of our lives is the same delicate balancing act. And we have to look at how to balance ourselves as we approach this topic.
Fighting climate change may feel too daunting for any one person to take on. But a recent report shows that if enough of us change our behaviors and promote change in our communities, we can reduce global greenhouse gas emissions by as much as 37% over the next 3 decades. Here are some of the changes we can make that will have an impact. While individuals can't revolutionize the shipping, flight, and automobile industries overnight, we can make sustainable choices every time we need to go somewhere. Public transportation, carpooling, biking, and walking are all great alternatives when feasible. For a bigger impact, choose a fuel-efficient vehicle when purchasing. Powering your home with solar or wind is still one of the best ways to fight climate change. The good news is that solar panels are becoming increasingly more affordable across the world. Another way to help is to make your next stove, water heater, and furnace purchase electric rather than gas. If these are not feasible options, switching all light bulbs to LEDs, unplugging electronic devices while they aren't in use, washing your clothes in cold water, and cleaning or replacing your HVAC filters every 3 months are small ways to help. After fossil fuels, the food industry, specifically the beef and dairy sectors, is one of the biggest contributors to climate change. If cattle were their own nation, they would be the world's 3rd largest emitter of greenhouse gases after China and the US. You don't have to go vegan or vegetarian to make a difference. Reducing your beef consumption or using dairy alternatives are ways to help reduce this impact. Not only do small actions like these add up, social scientists have found that when one person makes a sustainably oriented decision, other people do too. And as we all know, climate change won't be solved by individual habits alone, but will require broad policy solutions from governments, nonprofits, and industries around the world.
There's lots that we can do at the chapel. One thing that would create awareness is if we put solar panels on our roof. That would create an interesting debate between the look of the chapel and the issue of sustainability. Each of us could make a difference in our own way. And I just, one of the things I want to, is something that came out of here, I just want to repeat at this stage, is that declaration of interdependence that we came up with a number of years ago. And I just think it's worth just hearing that again, because it just speaks into this. This is something we came up with about 5 years ago. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that everything is created equal, that everything is endowed by its creator with certain unalienable rights, and among these are life and the coexistence of other created things. And to this end, we assert that all of creation is a part of one interdependent whole, and that the role of humanity is to ensure that it doesn't assert its own species' rights to the extinction of other species. To that end, we should attempt to cooperate with all life forms to enable a harmonious coexistence of planetary life. That there is no person, community, race, or nation that is superior to any other person, community, race, or nation, and that all should attempt to live in harmony with each other. That communities are interdependent with each other, and that sharing bounty, benefits, and problems are the only way to create a harmonious planetary existence. That all communities should aim to understand how to learn from and contribute to other communities. That the role of the individual is to develop wisdom and understanding and to cooperate with communities around it. So I think wisdom's key here. And I came across finally this last short film by the artist E.A. And it says this a whole lot better than I could.
Fun fact, planet Earth is 4.5 billion years old. Mankind, about 140,000 years old. Let me put that in perspective. If you condense the Earth's lifespan into 24 hours, that's one full day, then we have been here on this planet for, drum roll please, 3 seconds. 3 seconds. And look what we've done. We have modestly named ourselves Homo sapiens, meaning wise man. But is man really so wise? Smart, yes, and it's good to be smart, but not too smart for your own good. Yes, we have split the atom. Yes, we build clever machines that navigate the universe in search of new homes, but at the same time, those atoms we split created nuclear warfare. In our quest to explore the galaxy, rejects and neglects the home that we have here now, so no, that cannot be wisdom. Wisdom is different. While intelligence speaks, wisdom listens, and we willingly covered our ears to Mother Nature's screams and closed our eyes to all of her help-wanted signs. Wisdom knows that every action has an equal and opposite reaction, so if we were wise, we would not be shocked when we see storms that are stronger than ever before, or more drought, hurricanes, and wildfire than ever before, because there's more pollution than ever before, more carbon, more trees cut down than ever before. At a record pace, we have increased the extinction of animals by 1,000 times the normal rate. What a feat. In the next 10 to 100 years, every beloved animal character in every children's book is predicted to go extinct. Lions gone, rhinos gone, tiger, gorilla, elephant, polar bear gone in 3 seconds. Species that have been here longer than us will be gone because of us in this 3 seconds. In an existence shorter than a Vine video, we turn the circle of life into our own personal conveyor belt. Somebody, anybody help. We were given so much, the only planet in this solar system with life. I mean, we are 1 in a million. No, actually, scientifically, we are 1 in a billion, trillion. That's a 1 followed by 33 zeros. And I don't want to get too spiritual, but how are we not a miracle? We are perfectly positioned to the sun so we don't burn, but not too distant so we don't turn to ice. Goldilocks said it best. We are just right. This paradise where we are given medicine from trees, not coincidentally, but because like the song says, we are family. Literally, everything, every species is connected genetically from the sunflower to the sunfish. And this is what we must recognize before it's too late, because the real crisis is not global warming, environmental destruction, or animal agriculture. It is us. These problems are symptoms of us, byproducts of us. Our inner reflection, loss of connection has created this misdirection. We have forgotten that everything contributes to the perfection of Mother Nature. Corporations keep us unaware and disconnected, but they have underestimated our strength. Contrary to popular belief, millions are waking up out of their sleep, seeing our home being taken right up under our feet. We cannot allow our history to be written by the wicked, greedy, and loony. It is our duty to protect Mother Nature from those who refuse to see her beauty. Call me crazy, but I believe we should have the right to eat food that's safe, with ingredients we can pronounce. Drink water that is clean, marvel at trees, breathe air free of toxins. These are natural rights, not things that can be bargained for in Congress. See, they want you to feel powerless, but it has been said that something as small as the flutter of a butterfly's wing can cause a typhoon halfway around the world. Well, when enough people come together, we too will make waves and wash the world into a new era filled with love and connection, freedom for all without oppression. But it is up to you, yes, you watching this behind this screen, to make the effort, because time is of the essence, and only together can we make it to the 4th second.